I'll honor.
Okay. Am I allowed to come at the center of the stage? I read a quote somewhere. It says, the universe is made of stories, not atoms. I think it's true also. If you look at I am made of stories. I have a story. I'm sure you are made of stories. World is made of stories. Why the story? Because if you look back, especially in Bhutan, we have not really much of written history. Our parents passed down the knowledge, everything is a story. But not because from Bhutan I'm wanted to say about the power of the story, but if you look at the 21st century world, they said it is no more the story of the battle. It is the battle of the story. Whoever can put up the better story wins the argument, be it international, be it, right from the power struggle between the nation, between sector. Those days is all about the story of the battle. And they said the story of the battle is about mobilization. How you can mobilize army, how you can mobilize people, so that you can fight actual battle, and you have a winning story to tell about we won the battle. But in the 21st century, they say it's about the battle of the story. And battle of the story is about persuasion. How can you win someone's heart? How can you share your story and if it becomes other people's, it has to be genuine stories, then you can persuade. So why we are saying that is these stories were there. And now we have this technology, social media tool, be it Facebook, be it Twitter, be it YouTube. There's a channel to fight the battle without much power. Because if you are the powerless, you don't want to think about the story of the battle. You can never fight the battle. But you can tell the stories, and if you can tell the good stories, you can win the story, battle of the story. Your story might become the dominant story. It's there back to the history, right? Looking at how the Mahatma Gandhi ji says, be the change you want to see. It was a powerful story. Gandhi never fought physical battle. You look at Nelson Mandela, and even in the US, they say Rosa Parks sat on the bus so that Martin Luther King could march. And Martin Luther King marched so Obama can run. It's about the story. And I'm sure, just to pick, if you look at, I was just analyzing from the power story, the Obama's, I think 2004, the convention speech, or even later, where he says, if you deconstruct the powers, he says, my father came from Kenya, my mother from Kansas. When everything was impossible, black and white, they got married, and Obama, and he said, this is my story. And then he was talking to the other Americans. It's also, there are many immigrants here, stories here, and they say it's a larger American story, this is American story. So today, before going to the specific of creating digital, we want to give the power of story. This is because not that you just want to tell a story where I said, okay, I came today from the hotel here, and I walk in, and this is also a story, but that story actually remains as a story only, it doesn't go anywhere. Why you want to use the story? I am looking around here in the room. Some of you may be journalists, some of you may be industry leaders, some of you may be social business leaders. A story is a powerful tool if you are a leader to exercise your leadership. They call it authentic leadership. It can be your personal story base, it can be the community that you work for, but a story can be one way to exercise the leadership. If you want to be activist, or if you want to organize campaign, be it a social movement, be it environmental movement, be it a political movement, a story-based campaign, they say, is the most effective in 21st century. So this is why we wanted to focus on, today, I think especially Abdullah is going to lead on you can make a digital story using the movie and pictures. But if you understand that concept, I don't have much experience. I actually use it, and in Bhutan, very recent election, you use the power of story to change the government that was impossible to change. So, few examples I mentioned is that when you tell the story, if you have a story, like Abdullah said, something you experience that you feel passionate about, you tell your story. Actually, people don't want to know you. Who are you? If I tell my story, who are you? I'm Nima Singh Bhutan, so what? But if I am able to tell my story, and then my friend here, if he thinks that that is not just my story, it's his story, and if she thinks that it's not my story, her story, then the story creates a social moment, and then ultimately social change. So when you do the story, it has to be first, if you are not at all part of it, people don't want to listen to you. So first, you have to be a story of self, be a personal story, some kind of involvement, and then it has to be a story of us. There's us. You may not be able to speak to the whole world. I think I was looking at this girl's, she was bringing out her story, and us, if there anybody who believes that what she experienced is true, if it's not true, then if there are other women or other girls who experience like us, then she has the us there. And then she is saying that, there's urgency, maybe speak up. So a story of self, if you convert to a story of us, and then if you can convert it into a story of now, the action happens, moment creates. So we got a little detail in later, the specific of the specific digital story, but broadly, if you look at it, even without the social media, without the technology, they said, if you want to use the story to create a moment, to create a leadership, they say you need to have 5 broad elements. And you can, if you note down those 5 elements, you can dissect the Obama's story, Gandhi's story, Mandela's story, or even like how this girl's story. They say first, in the story, there needs to be conflict. If you just say that I had the delicious samosa today, and then I went to eat another samosa, there's no conflict. I just enjoyed. So in the story, if you want to use the story as a strategy, as a leadership tool, as a social moment platform, there has to be conflict. It's just like a Hindi movie, there's like bad guy and the good guy. If the movie is only about good guy, it's not fun. There has to be conflict, Then you, as an audience, you decide to side whether most of the time you want to side with the good guys. So to move the people's heart, it has to be conflict. A conflict here in the audience, video I was seeing, the girl, she says, I'm a victim, I'm a good girl. But there's some, be it like social norm, be it like whatever, the power dynamics, I'm in conflict, whatever way you say it. So there has to be conflict. Second point is there has to be character. The story can't be about this building and that building. It has to be a real human being involved. So there has to be character, like, the good guys, bad guys, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. Here, I guess the girl is there, and then she is in conflict with certain characters there. Third, which I think digital tool will really use it, is image. Because people like to remember the image. Image of, if you go to the Wall Street, the Rosa Parks, sitting on the bus, Martin Luther King marching, Obama running, Gandhi, So it has to be image. Or if you look at the Arab Spring, there's someone, I think Tunisia, some vegetable vendor, he burned himself. There's an image that people can say, okay, anchor. So image can be in terms of anecdote, it can be in terms of a bit of like the incident, it can be like whatever whatever the picture people has to remember. There's a third element, very, very basic. And fourth, they call it foreshadowing or visioning. If you act, what will be the outcome, So if you want to move, if you're a leader, if you want to move a moment, create a social change, people who are listening to your story need to know what they can do. if your story, if they can't, if they want, there's nothing they can do it, your story will die out. It won't go viral, at least. So foreshadowing, something like in the movie, you know, in the beginning there may be a gun somewhere else, and you even don't notice. But some kind of cue, you know, at some point the gun's going to come back, you know. So foreshadowing is something that when you tell the story, you said here, I think that she did very effectively. It means that she keep on talking about silence, silence, silence. And it means that if you speak up, I don't have to go through, or you don't have to go through. So there's something called like what you can do, the foreshadowing. And the fifth one, the most important you have to get right is assumption. I don't know whether how strong I was going through that 5 element. 4 I think came out very strong, and 5th one I'm not sure about assumption. Because when you tell a story, if I say I have this story that I want to do, bring a change, you probably has to have critical mass of target that you believe that this is what they have inside their heart. You have to assume. If you get assumption wrong, sometimes again your story may not be effective. In this case, I'm not sure. She said that she protected the way she always struggling in the family, not decision. If there are enough family where if people believe that's true, her story become powerful. But if you have enough family where you say, oh, we're a very loving family, I don't mind my mother taking decisions, I don't mind my father taking decisions, it's a very loving family. You talk to an audience where everybody's family is so loving that they don't like to take the decision, then that assumption could be wrong, and they'll say, oh, you know, it's my family, actually I don't want to speak up because I love my mother and father. So the assumption has to get right. Suppose this is true, be it environmental campaign, be it political campaign, assumptions. So those are the 5, the broad story without the digital. But this is more from the Abdullah's where they said later, I think they're going to actually train you, show you hands-on, how you can create, just like the Kali, I forgot her name, Khalida, yeah. So Abdullah told me that one of the, like this kind of audience, novice participant, and she used this technique, actually created a story, and someone, like her, can create that powerful story. I think it's important. And here, I gave this broad, very general, very broad pipe sort of like element of the story in general. This one, Abdullah and we are discussing specifically for if you're creating a digital story, more so in the video format. And they said, here they say like, you need a point of view. Just like I said, there needs to be some kind of conflict and you need to pick, you know, are you going to play a victim? Or are you going to play a hero? Or something else? You have to have some kind of framing point of view. And then here, like, he says something that's a dramatic question. Does the guy get the girl? Like, in her story, I think, will someone speak up? Or did she actually, did she speak up? I don't know. It didn't come out to me very effective. But maybe like through this video, she's speaking up because she's revealing her real identity, you know. And she said like, okay, I'm revealing she said I don't have identity, but by saying that she is so revealing her real name identity, she's speaking up. So that's, I guess, the question. And the emotional content part, my personal take on, based on my experiences, been to 300 villages on food, listen to all kind of stories, is stories has to be true, it has to be genuine. True stories actually moves. It has to be a true story. Because human beings in general are good, and usually they empathize with the true. And then I guess gift of here they call it gift of your voice. I like to say the story you have to awake one of the 5 senses, be it touch, hear, feel. Someone who will listen to your story or read your story has to actually feel that in them. And then I guess the power of soundtrack, more from digital point of view, I guess gives the technical points. Yeah, technical points. So basically, yeah. So I'll leave it to that. Then if need be, I'll come back later. Really, I personally found very important. I work for 3 years. I work with the people at the bottom of the pyramid, trying to bring up. I used to call them invisible people, because they are not visible to people who walk the corridors of power. And I actually did that just to create a social change, because I work with the king of Bhutan, and they thought that I walk the corridor of power. And because I walk the corridor of power, I went to the grassroots and keep on saying that they are invisible people who walk the corridor of power, because I wanted to talk to the politicians and ministers and prime ministers and governors and bureaucrats to understand, because if just to create like from technology point of view, a bit of disruptive technology. So, but I didn't have a tool because I couldn't use something, any kind of, you cannot declare a war. So only way is you put a one story that they will not pay attention. You put a two story, three story, and now even like on a personal Facebook, sometimes when I put following those angle, I put a story up there, and I test, I put a story with a different form without those kind of framework, normal story, and 2 or 3 reach shares, and that's it, usually my relatives. And you put that framework, it got viral, and even my personal Facebook, like one story recently went like 600 shares, which is if each person has a Facebook on average minimum 1,000 friends or 500 friends, it go to 600,000. Whole population of Bhutan is 700,000. So you can imagine that the mainstream media will not be able to reach that. And then I go to the street, actually test, and they say, oh, like you may not remember me, but I read that story. It's true. I advise my son to do that. So that's when you realize that someone who never know identify with the story, because it has to be, it becomes their story. It's, suppose like last time, I carry my mother on the back, and there's a picture. I just put a picture there, and I think Abdullah saw also. We never met. He liked it. Why it went viral? Because everyone has a mother. It's not because they like what I wrote it. They like what I did for my mother. And everyone who loves their mother, they say, that's great, thumbs up, we're going to share. And some mother says, oh, I want a son like this. So it's because everyone has a mother. My assumption was, I wanted to appeal this story to anybody who has a mother, and I want to appeal to all the mothers. And I think there are enough audience in the world who there are mothers, and there are people with mothers. So I was trying to test those elements of story. And if you do that, be it from, I guess, be a journalist, be social change, it was quite, at least personally, I believe in the power of story more than the battle, because nowadays, if someone like actually fight a battle, is not very effective. But if you can put a good story out there, be it Twitter, be it Facebook, it goes viral. And so today, I think Abdullah is going to lead some hands-on how to use those tools. Thank you.